Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of our podcast, Web3 and Chill. I'm Ayush, and wearing roughly the same t-shirt with me, my co-host, we have Vishal.
And this
Uh,
is the second time it's happening that coincidentally we're wearing the same kind of t-shirts.
and we have with us Catherine, who's the SVP Web3 Metaverse Strategy from Media.Monks. Hi, Catherine. Thank you for joining our podcast. Really glad to have you here.
Thank you. It's my pleasure to be here.
That's great. How are you? What's going on?
Hello.
Yes.
I'm very well, thank you. It's a bright sunny morning here in Brooklyn, New York.
Oh, nice. That's great. So, Catherine, how did you get into the Web3 world?
Well, I would say that I've been working with technology for some 15 years in investment banking as an advisor to institutional investors. So I would go around the world talking to them about what were the most important trends, the mega trends happening in technology, and why. So I take very much an economist perspective, and in banking we also have a term about top down and bottom up. Top down is the big macro issues that we're thinking about every day. So these days, the flavor of the week is AI. Last year, it was NFTs. The year before that, it was Metaverse. And we see these things come in waves. But really, my job is to put these things together in a way that's meaningful, that makes sense, that makes us understand the long-term implications of these technologies, how we're going to use them, and their effect on culture. So that's my obsession. And the culture really is the bottom-up part. That's kind of how new generations and young people are really radically changing the landscape of our culture by using the technology differently. And so that's kind of a fascination of mine. And at Media.Monks, we are the world's biggest digital media agency. So it's really important to have our pulse on what's happening culturally, because we also want to create experiences and exciting brand experiences that are very engaging. So you need to understand what's happening on each one of these platforms, and how people are, what makes them tick.
Yeah. I, you know, I loved what you mentioned about cultural changes that happens because of technology. Now, if we recall, internet was first developed by, I guess, US Army, and the adoption of computer was from companies. Companies brought in computers, and then people started using it later on. So
Yeah,
when
that's right.
a Web3 or a metaverse, what do you think the adoption will be? Will it be first in companies and then trickle down to the end user, or the end user start using it and then the companies adopt?
That's a really good question. And I would say that history has shown us that enterprise tends to be the leading adopter because it helps scale down the costs so that consumers can access these technologies, and we are able to create software and programs that then can be sold to the masses. It's slightly different now. I mean, I still believe that's the case, and that's why we're seeing so many hardware manufacturers create headsets that are geared towards enterprise and industry. And that's why a lot of people say, oh, the metaverse is dead. Well, it's not dead. It's just that most people on the street don't see it in action, but most companies are using it in upstream manufacturing and processing and plant and facilities maintenance and monitoring. And so we may not see it. So people think, oh, nothing's happening. But in fact, there's a very robust industry that's applying these technologies to industry. And you also mentioned the US Army, the Navy, the Air Force, the Marines. And I think governments around the world are using metaverse technologies to think about how they can streamline public services. So yes, we are going to see it in all of those areas before we start to see it really take off. I think there is one interesting note, and that is that the gaming is incredibly popular. And also with younger people, they also create their own worlds. So I think that that's going to come up in a different way, and it'd be very significant in terms of the future internet, the Web3, the 3D web. And I think that's going to be have really interesting implications for the future of commerce, the future of work. I mean, young people are already able to earn money in games or produce games or sell things. And that's radically different than anything we've seen before.
I mean, that was a great answer, first of all. Thank you. That was insightful. Second, we've seen last year, 2022, NFTs being launched by different companies. Not a lot of utilities attached to it, but yeah, companies were still there. Hey, we are the Web3. And a lot of companies did launch things in Metaverse, be it your Gucci Garden or HSBC launching something in a sandbox, etc. Do you see a similar trend happening in 23, 24, or do you see the use cases changing?
They're definitely changing, and it's an evolution as companies are trying to see what sticks. And I don't blame them. Sure, there was money to be made last year. And if I were a marketing manager, I definitely would have tried to put something out there. And we certainly encourage people to try to see what would work for their brand. It's what we call treasure in the attic, meaning that every brand has a mascot or something really special about it that people love. Otherwise, they wouldn't buy it. So there's something that people can relate to with each brand. But it's got to go beyond pure just postings in NFT. It's got to be something more substantive. And I think that's got to be what brands are looking at, is what I call, CRM, or customer relationship management, or loyalty programs. That's a big focus of ours internally. What does that look like? How do you structure that? So an NFT is basically, if you think about it like a ticket, right? You own a ticket and you have a seat in a theater. And so you want to see certain things. It's like, let's just say it's a concert. You want all of your favorite songs to be played, but also maybe you get a t-shirt as part of the experience. Maybe, you get with that a special code on your ticket, you get access to something else. And so NFT is kind of that ticket to all sorts of experiences later on. And that's what we want to think about in terms of giving value to the people who hold it. Otherwise, why would they hold it? Why own it? It's not a one-off. It's definitely about keeping people loyal and making them want to come back.
So apart from ticketing or gated communities, are there any other use cases that you folks are working on as Media.Monks for other Fortune brands?
We're working on a lot of projects. I think, we're some 10,000 people in about 40 offices around the world, including India. And so, we're very, very busy. We work with some of the world's biggest and best loved brands. And we were also nominated one of the world's most innovative companies by Harvard Business Review. So we're very proud of our legacy in terms of building out digital media. And we understand it in a way because we've been building it for so long. We always started, this is our DNA. So we're super excited. We don't see this as something that's transitional, that's something that's just a fad. This is a long-term systematic shift in the way we engage with brands and with each other online.
That's great. And how do you see, so I've seen you talking a lot about AI. How do you see AI, Web3, Metaverse, and digital assets coming along?
Yeah, that's a really long answer. I'll try to keep it brief. But I mean, people mostly think about AI. Yeah, and most people think about generative AI in terms of in terms of just creating content, but it's not just content. It's also enabling the metaverse in many ways. So, for example, if you think about the metaverse, to keep platforms robust and always on and scalable, it's really, really hard. So for operations, we call it AI ops. Those could be used to predict and prevent outages or identify problems and solve them. So it's almost like having a robot that's constantly scanning the computer to make sure that it's working. Well, that's basically what it does for operations. And so they can do things like, customer service. So bots for marketing and sales and monitoring activity within a world. So if we're thinking about hate speech or bullying or aggression, you can have bots around that kind of monitor user activity and help keep it a safe and health and friendly and fun environment. We can also have avatars that can generate real scenes, or AI can create avatars. So we can also have realistic language so that the avatars can say, hi, welcome to this world. Let me show you around. And so that it's like a non-player character in a game. It gives that place character, it gives it life. And that is, for persistent, always on world, that's kind of what you want. AI can create realistic textures and realistic worlds. So if you want to recreate New York, we've got, millions of pictures. We can create something relatively similar to that very quickly and post it in our world. So it's going to make production that much faster. And when I say New York, it doesn't have to be New York. It can be a machine. It can be content. It can be anything. And then, we can also do things like trading and, basically execute blockchain agreements, which is really essential because you want something to make sure that it's automated. But in the end of the day, it's like natural language processing, speech recognition, computer vision, AR, all of these things can be enabled with AI in the metaverse. So it has lots of applications and, well beyond just creating content or pictures.
Yeah, so I think that's a great perspective. All I want from AI is to take over all the jobs so that we can actually chill all day and spend
Wouldn't
time
that be
watching Netflix.
great? You just have to check into your house and make sure that
Yeah,
it's running every now and then, or just check your phone and be like, okay, it's still working.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And watch
So
the money roll in.
there was this joke going on that overnight all the Web3 expert became AI expert on LinkedIn. So because people
Yeah, I
also
feel
started
that way
talking about.
too. That's
So
why I
on that,
try to link it back to metaverse, because I'm like, actually, it is something that we need to cover.
yeah,
But AI has been something that's been around for a long time. It just hasn't been this scalable or this obvious. We get it even in our prompts when you write an email. Sometimes it'll finish that sentence. Well, that's AI.
yeah,
We've
yeah,
had
yeah,
a lot of
exactly.
these things in our world already.
Yeah, yeah.
The
So I
number of
see you.
times, the number
Sorry,
of
what?
times I've been told by Gmail that, hey, you forgot to attach the attachment that you wrote.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Do you want to send this without the attachment? Or even if you call and it says, press 1 for this, and what would you like? And you go, I want to speak to an agent. And they'll say, can you tell me what it's about? Well, all of that is prompted with AI. So this isn't new. It's just that suddenly
Yeah.
we have it in our own hands. And it's like, oh gosh, what do we do with it? And it's kind of fun and exciting.
So
Yeah.
recently I saw that ChatGPT said that they will enable other companies and enterprises to use their API. I think that's brilliant. Like the amount of opportunities it opens is crazy.
But ChatGPT also told it wants to be alive, so that's scary. So anyways,
That's true. It is scary because of the data set, but I think we need to be very, very careful about what we feed it, so it doesn't grow into a monster. And I think also we need to be aware that we're going to have counterbots, because we're going to have such a flood of email that we're going to have other counterbots to go through all the email and figure out which ones we want. It's going
yeah,
to be really hard to reach a person after a while, but it's, still interesting.
yeah. So I also see you posting a lot about virtual economy. So would you like to explain what is virtual economy and how brands are actually making money? Because I think we have been talking about what is in for the consumer, if they're buying an NFT of they're going to a token gated community, or they're going to a metaverse. Today, how brands are making money in the virtual economy?
Yeah, sure. So the virtual economy, if we look at a company like Ralph Lauren, they increased their sales by 40% for digital, their e-commerce business. And that's because they really put out a lot of virtual clothing on platforms like Zepeto and other gaming platforms like Roblox that enable them to enjoy a massive uptick in their sales. So it really can be very rewarding. We worked very closely with Gucci on the Vault, and we also worked with Thierry Mugler, and it sold out in
Okay.
seconds. It just almost broke open sea. And so that was really exciting for us. But sometimes they would just want to do a one-off and they don't really want to do a consistent program. What I would say is that it does have long-term benefits if you want to be in the game.
Yeah.
And speaking of gaming, of course, game skins are an obvious place to play. So as that becomes, more pervasive and as we're able to play multiple games on our phones and access more, more, we can shop more on our phones for virtual assets. I think it's going to be super exciting. Amazon is coming out with their own platform. So you can be sure it's going to
Yeah.
be really easy to buy virtual assets very soon. I've talked to a couple of big brands
Mm,
that are planning their NFT launch with Amazon. I
got
don't know about the utility. I've got good sources, but they won't tell me everything. But it's going to be really interesting to see it become a commodity that you can
Yeah.
buy with fiat currency, your
Yeah.
local currency.
Yeah. No, I saw that Amazon is launching its NFT platform. I think it came only yesterday. On that, given you all also a
I posted this
consultant.
on my site like a month ago
Oh, maybe I missed
on
that.
LinkedIn.
So,
You got to
you
follow
might,
me, Vishal.
I do, but I think I missed that. No worries. Maybe I got the news late. So you also talk to a lot of brand and you consult them to get into the space. Or what did you advise a brand which is not familiar with this entire ecosystem and there is a lot of noise around what to do in Web3, and also brands are skeptical that because not a lot of consumer are already in this space, they're not sure what they want to do. So what is your first go to advice for brands who want to get into this space but have zero knowledge and zero capability expertise in this field?
Well, that's a bigger conversation because you don't want to dive in and then find yourself with an offer that you can't follow up, or you don't want it to fall flat. It has to be priced at the right place. It's like all the basics from marketing 101. It's like the price, the positioning, and the everything. And so the place. And so all of those things are still true. So you definitely want to seek advice about what that looks like because it is a longer term relationship. It's not just a one-off. And if you do the one-off, the crazy thing about the Mugler is it's just the opposite of the Porsche NFT release. Porsche
Okay.
released an NFT, it was an absolute flop. Why? It's because the enthusiasts were like, is that it? And they just weren't that excited about it because it was, expensive, but you just got the NFT and they're thinking, I don't get invited to a race or a local car show or anything. And I think people were disappointed. And similarly, Mugler, which is a huge success, again, only wanted to do a one-off, and it left a lot of people very disappointed for the same reason. So it has to be a longer term shift in terms of the relationship, and it doesn't have to be glamorous, and it doesn't even have to be expensive. The point is to hold on to your consumers in a very competitive market. So what does that look like? And that's, I guess, the first question I'd start to say,
Got
thinking
it.
about the philosophy of why you want to do it and how you're willing to support your customers. The last thing I would say when it comes to culture is how can they help you? Because they want to be part of your brand. How can they tell your story? How can they share their joy, their love, like the little boy who loves corn? I mean,
Got it. Got it. Got it.
corn companies are like, yay. Of course, it's not the kind of thing people get enthusiastic about too often. So, to be able to share somebody's unique joy about whatever it is that you do in a meaningful way that sparks joy within that community is a great thing. So, how can you make them part of the process? I would definitely recommend including that as part of your roadmap and your thinking.
Got it. Got it. Clear. So the next is like I also come from agency background. I was working with a digital marketing agency, and back then that was the most sought after skill in the market. So as you are an expert in this field and you are also leading an agency, what do you think? What is the key skill set that is going to be in huge demand in the next 5 year in this area?
I think definitely a solid knowledge of decentralized finance. So basically tokenomics, because it's going to get pretty complicated. I do believe that alternative currencies will become a thing, very common, because money is notional, right? I mean, most people don't even carry money. I know use cash ever. I try to avoid it because if I find some change in my pocket, I don't know what to do with it. It's just not going to add up to anything significant. And then when you give cash away, they always give you change back. And what do you do with that? Anyway, so you can play with almost anything with plastic, and increasingly, and I don't know how it's in India, but certainly in China, with your phone, even for a piece of fruit on the street. So money is notional, right? And of course, it's hard for older people to understand that. They're like, it has to be pinned to our currency. It's like, well, I don't know. I'm an economist, but I'd suggest that, you have to look at things like national debt and other things and say, is this really the best, currency that we could have? So it's really interesting to see the shift in perception, and maybe it's just a digital currency like the Chinese, CBDC. I always forget to say it, but the digital currency or the US digital coin, maybe those will take over. Who knows? But I do believe that an emergence of other digital coins will become important. So definitely currencies. And then the second thing when it comes to this is, of course, dev skills will become, they're still very important, because even if you create worlds through AI generative art, you still need somebody to really understand the UX and what people really want to do. And it's good if you can be a very strong developer in certain platforms. So for example, we hired somebody who was a specific Roblox developer because he was so good at that, and Roblox was in high demand. We'll have to see which platforms emerge as the leaders and how they evolve, but certainly getting in early on the key platforms, I think is very fundamental. And then understanding gaming really well, because gaming is not just the game itself, but the structure of the game. How can we gamify many of our activities online? So in the same way that we gamified apps, we really need to think about these worlds in different ways, especially for younger consumers. So I guess those are the three areas I would say are low-hanging fruit. And I'm sure a lot of people who are listening to you are probably very good at many of these things.
Got it. So I think the true magic will happen when an Unreal Engine can come in a format of a web AR, right? When we can process such visuals on a browser, I think that is when things will move. Or if hardware is coming at a really cheap and accessible cost, Apples and Samsungs are making it and everyone is wearing, I think then it will be a very interesting time to be.
I think it will be interesting. I just wouldn't expect it anytime soon. I would say, we're so excited by technology, and things are accelerating very rapidly. But realistically, I think it's, another 10 years before we'll be able to wear smart glasses and walk down the street and say, hey, Siri, where is the nearest Starbucks? And I don't want to say it too loud because probably one of my gadgets will answer. But
no, I think it was first done by Google Glasses. It failed, but recently I think Xiaomi launched an AR glass. Let's see how it goes.
But we have to map it to real world things, and that's when it becomes useful. And that's the hard part, because I absolutely love when I could just like play music and talk on my glasses. But when I can say, hey, where's Starbucks? And it shows me the directions. I don't have to look on my phone and try to figure out where I am, but it actually shows me the arrows and I can see it turn left here. That would be amazing. But we have to map and link all of our physical locations to our virtual worlds. And that's going to take a long time. Maybe AI can help with that.
You mentioned the corn example sometime back. I heard it as corn. Like, VR is already in there. Okay. Moving on. You're talking about tokenomics. That's really important to understand tokenomics. So I have three questions. What is tokenomics? Why is it important? And how can somebody learn it? Or where can someone start learning it from?
Well, you're based in India, so you're some of the best economists in the world. So I have no doubt that it's going to be easy to learn. So tokenomics is basically the ecosystem of tokens, as digital, as kind of I would say it's a digital currency in a way, but think of it as brands instead of like cash. So what is it that those brands confer? If you buy into this thing, because it costs a certain amount of money, it's a token. It's not really a currency, but it is something that holds value. It's a store of value. But what do you get in exchange for holding it? So it's more like a stock, I guess, rather than a coin. So what do you get? Do you what sort of dividends do you get? What sort of perks for holding it? And so you have to craft an entire ecosystem around that, saying, okay, well, you get physical experiences, you get digital experiences or virtual experiences. So you can come into the store for very exclusive events, or you can go online and learn about, I don't know, health and nutrition at specific events, or maybe we can teach courses and you can get a certificate, and because you're part of this insider group. What does that look like? And what does it look like over 1 year, 2 years, 3 years? What are you prepared to give people? What are you going to build on? Because you have to be prepared. I'm in the process of writing a book, and
Oh,
we're
wow.
definitely going to issue
Oh,
yeah. And we're definitely issuing an NFT around it that will confer certain benefits to the people who hold the book. So, for example, it'll be private consulting, or maybe we'll have meetups. Maybe we'll give people a quarterly outlook. So there's something, you really have to wrap value around it so that you create that community. And I think that's the key thing, is community and culture are probably the two biggest buzzwords you'll be hearing over the next year.
I have a thought. I mean, I know the answer to this, but I'm just asking to, so that it provokes some thoughts in our listeners' mind. Let's say you're
Yeah.
selling the book right now. You could be like, hey, scan this QR code, and you'll be directed to a certain web page where you can set up your login and a password, and you'll be part of a community which is let's say managed by Catherine and etc. There'll be a WhatsApp, Telegram group, blah blah blah. But it's not on a Web3. It's not an NFT. Somebody has an email ID and a password attached to it. Why does that not work? Why do we need to attach an NFT to this?
Well, the NFT, first of all, because you have to purchase it. Now, QR code, you can scan into it and then just be part of it. And there's nothing wrong with that. And I might just take that idea. Thank you very much. What I would say is the NFT is something that is non-transferable, so it's just yours, and it will have a resale value. But mostly you want to encourage people to hold it. So the idea of tokenomics, you're giving people a value for being part of this club, if you will. But we really want to go back to CRM, or relationship management with your consumer. And that's basically, you want to keep them loyal by giving them things, and the token is that vehicle. So maybe a better analogy is it's a carriage full of gifts. So this is the carriage, the vehicle, and inside you've got lots of gifts that you kind of dole out every so often.
Got it. So that's amazing. So recently we also saw a rise in virtual KOLs or influencer. Like I follow this Miss Cupcake who has millions of followers. So what is your view on this virtual KOLs, and where do they fit into a brand's media plan, and how do you feel about the future of this?
I think it's a great question, and I'm glad you asked it, because I'm a big fan of avatars. I really love them. And you probably saw the campaign that we did with The Weeknd,
Yeah.
where we had him do, we scanned his face, and then we
Yeah,
took a
I
lot
saw that.
of answers. Yeah, and we ran them through so he could personally greet anybody who came to his page and say, wow, you've been visiting my page X amount of times, you listen to my song 6,000 times. That's a lot. Thank you very much. So all sorts of things like this. And, it's so cool to have that relationship. It's something that we call a parasocial relationship. People feel very
Okay.
close to celebrities. They feel very close to people that they follow. They want more content. They want a relationship. And it goes again, CRM, consumer relationship management.
Yeah,
How can you
yeah.
do that? One of the best ways, and Bish, I'm glad you said this, is through creating an avatar that people can talk to. And it shouldn't be just a typical Barbie, like, we think this is beauty and this has to be, no, it should be someone relatable. Some of the
Hmm.
best ones, if you look at Lil Michaela, she's, kind
Yeah.
of unusual looking. And what's interesting about her is that she looks like she could be Japanese, she could be Middle
Yeah.
Eastern, she could be
I think and
Latina,
she
she
is, I
could
think,
be,
the most popular one.
yeah, exactly. So there are a lot of really great ones, and you see them like they're like some 9,000 and counting in Japan. They even have bands like aespa
Yeah.
that have virtual members. I think it's so great. I love it.
Yeah, yeah. Even I tried
We
to
will
create
all have our
one.
personal AIs.
Yeah, yeah, I think that is an area. I think people connect more to them because there is a no, it's not like any typical human. It's something very new and exciting. And again, it is rooted to everyone's memory that we grew up watching animated character and now we are seeing them in the virtual world. So I think it's an exciting. The other thing I wanted to touch upon was I saw this really cool use case which you work with the Adidas on creating AI avatar. So can you talk about that and what was that and what it solved for them and how it was?
Yeah. So I thank you. I love that case. Basically, Adidas came to us. We have a team called Jam 3, and they decided that they wanted to create something that they could give to their fans. They didn't want them to have to buy it and have all that competition. They really wanted to say thank you for being a fan. And they also wanted to use AI. So they combined AI to generate a custom avatar that you could then bring, hold to yourself, like download it and then use it across different game worlds, which is amazing. So they're getting this like super cool avatar, like high design. We came up with some really cool, fun designs. And we had, so it had this combination of different outfits. And so how do you get like this avatar? Well, you'd have to answer a couple of personality questions so that we would come up with something that was kind of unique to you. Like each one of us, we're all unique. We
Yeah,
have our different style, and we
yeah,
wanted to give that back to consumers. And so it just ticked off a lot of boxes. So you had the AI avatar generator, you have an avatar you can use across worlds, and you use them in metaverse worlds where you can like represent. You're wearing the Adidas stripes. Everybody knows that's a really
got
cool
it.
Adidas avatar. And finally, some people actually sold it. So instead of having to buy an avatar, some people earned money off of theirs, and that's fine, because the idea was just to like say thank you to all of their fans. So we generated about 500,000 of them within the first week, and it was a very successful campaign. We're very proud
Yeah.
of it.
That's exciting. I think the entire concept of personalizing that and giving this experience is something that is really great. I also understood again through following you that you have also studied VR filmmaking and immersive media, and a
Mhm.
lot of people do aspire to be in that space. So, what would be your advice? How do they get started in this domain?
Well, I feel like it's more accessible than ever. I actually wish I knew how to build, Unity sets and use Unreal. Um, because filming is really not that hard. What's really fascinating though is people are starting to give film courses how to film inside VR, which is
Okay,
just so incredible. So I would say have a look at that because that is the way forward for content generation. And also, I do believe we're going to see real human influencers as avatars in virtual worlds. I had a
yeah,
show in VR myself. It was a little early and it was in a platform called Altspace, which is
yeah. I know
Microsoft
all
is pulling
this.
the plug on it. Yeah, this very week, which is very sad. But you have to try and get your hands a bit messy, and you never know where it can lead. Look, it brought me to the biggest, coolest digital media agency in the world
Yeah.
and opened up a lot of doors for me. So it may not make you a filmmaker, but you do understand the medium much better if you're in there really understanding the world and the people that inhabit them.
Got it. Got it. And I also can relate. I think roughly a year ago, before we had this podcast, me and Ayush did a webinar inside Fortnite, and
Yeah.
surprisingly, 40 plus people joined that. I created an island
Cool.
and people joined and we were talking the future of metaverse inside Fortnite. So yeah, it was quite fun and exciting. I think
Ah,
I we should do that once again.
next time invite me, I'm coming, Vish.
Yeah, we should do.
Yeah, that was nice. It's been a year, but yeah, we still had 40 participants in a live, in a live medium. So yeah, right, we should do something similar and invite Catherine to it. Hey,
You
Kath.
bet. I mean, it feels different, doesn't it? Like here we're looking at flat pictures, but when you're actually standing next to somebody, even if it's an
Mm.
avatar, you really feel like you saw them. It's
Yeah,
weird.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
hard
yeah.
for
I think
people who
it's
don't to
yeah,
understand.
Hey, Vishal, let's start, hosting our podcast inside some metaverse. Now it'll be more fun.
yeah, yeah. Let's explore that.
Catherine, you wrote something as 4.cast 23.
Ah, yes.
Yes. What is it? Do you want to talk about the content of Forecast 23? I like the wordplay
So,
though.
yeah. It's funny because I have a entire series of intelligence reports. And so I have one, it's 75 pages of headsets and the outlook for wearables. I have another one on retail. It was published about a year or two ago, but it's still very, very relevant. It just makes the case for virtual retail. Another one a deck I did was on health and beauty in the metaverse. And yet another one on, gosh, I've done so many. I just get obsessed with a certain subject and then I write these really long, detailed things and I give them away for free. The reason I do that is because if you can afford a McKinsey report that costs $5,000, that's great, but not a lot of people can. And I write these things for myself to explore and to really understand the space. But once I've done it, I don't need it. But I also want people to understand what's happening. So I've written one recently on the decentralized entertainment. Bollywood is huge. So this is a huge opportunity, especially for India, to get financing for film and disrupting some of the big chokeholds that big studios have on media production. And that's less of a problem for you than it is, I think, probably here, but it's a massive problem. And I think that having new platforms and having the ability to create content more easily and less expensively is something that we're going to see more and more of over time. So I create these documents that people can access. They're all on my LinkedIn. And soon I'm going to have my own website where you can just download them and learn. The forecast was an outlook on what's happening for the rest of the year from my perspective, talking to a lot of people and just kind of studying the markets, and just a sneak preview of what we can expect across different technologies. So
If you
feel free
have,
to download it. It's on my site.
we will
So
put the link of your website down here in the descriptions for our audience whoever is interested in our intelligence reports. Please have a look.
Yeah, I've got to put them in one place, but most of them are in the featured section of my LinkedIn page.
Sure.
And I also did the Metaverse course. What is the Metaverse for Meta? It's available on Coursera for free. And I explain Web3 and I think I did healthcare. I did 3 sections. I can't remember them all. And then I also have a course that's I don't think it's free, but if you go to your local library, if your company pays for Coursera, there is one called AR and VR for business, and I explain how it all comes together for enterprise
got it.
Definitely,
Okay.
we'll put
and
all the
marketing
links in
too.
here.
We cover marketing.
Yeah. Cool. Catherine, I think this was a great session, and we need to do another episode with you. There's so content
When
heavy.
my book comes out,
Oh, when is it
Yeah,
coming out?
it comes out in August, so we'll have to talk later in the season. I'd like that very much because
sure.
I have to find an excuse to come. I need an excuse to come visit India, so I want some companies to say, "Okay, come talk to us."
Oh, we can do it offline. Yeah, that'll be fun.
Yeah, that would be great. Gentlemen, thank you so much for today. It's been a real pleasure.
Same here.
Thank you so much. It was amazing. I think our
One
viewers
one
will
of
get a
the
lot of insight
one
from
of the
that.
most amazing sessions I've had on Web3 and Chill. Truly. So thank you so much.